What's up, and welcome back to the greatest teacher of all time, where I, Quincy Dawson, interview teachers of color to highlight their personalities, strategies, and philosophies on education. Make sure to like and subscribe to the channel and visit greatestteacherofalltime.com to help me support more great teachers like Miss Montgomery. What's good, Aireane?
Hello, you guys.
All right, thank you so much for being here. I have been following you on social media for a minute. You started out as a teacher, but now you're doing some really cool things for equity for Black educators. So I feel like I gotta highlight you for it.
Thank you. So, would you like me to tell you just a little bit about myself and the organization?
Yeah, of course, of course. So yeah, intro. Yeah, tell me.
All right. So, hi, you guys. My name is Aireane Montgomery. All right. Now I'm the president and CEO of Georgia Educators for Equity and Justice. We're a 501c3 devoted to the liberation and belonging of Black educators and Black students across the state of Georgia. I am a teacher by trade. I taught at Central Gwinnett High School in Gwinnett County Public Schools. I was a 12th grade social studies teacher. I taught AP Government, American Civics, Economics, Ethnic Studies, and Contemporary Issues. And I will say that my favorite job was being an educator. I just absolutely adored it. I loved really just getting to know my students and really becoming a student to my students as well, as they really taught me about how to pursue my dreams. And so I was just thankful to have the opportunity to even be in just community with students in general, as they are really the future and they can really help you really achieve your own dreams just by listening to theirs. So that's pretty much a little bit about myself. The Georgia Educators for Equity and Justice was founded April 15th, 2021. We were founded coming out of a grassroots movement that we did within Gwinnett County Public Schools, as we called for the district to become really equitable and provide one-to-one devices as well as access to internet, especially since our demographics, which what people don't really realize at that time was over 70% majority minority student population. And so I had the amazing opportunity to teach in the district that I also was raised in. So I matriculated through Gwinnett County from 2nd through 12th grade. I started in the South Gwinnett cluster and then ended up graduating from the Brookwood cluster. And so I had a lot of experience in Gwinnett County and then ended up coming back and being able to teach at Central Gwinnett High School. What was so interesting about, just my teaching journey in general is my mom was a parapro in Gwinnett County Public School District for 22 years. I was a Title I student, but because my mom worked in more of the affluent part of the cluster or of the district, I was able to go to a very affluent school as a Title I student. And that was a very precarious situation just in general. And so it made me really empathize with my students as I saw myself within them, but was in a different environment than the environment that I grew up in, whereas I was one of the only Black kids in some of my classes. This was majority Black and Hispanic demographic of students. And so it just really fueled us, including one of my colleagues, Anthony Downer, to create a space where we were thinking about education for students of color. We were thinking about really just the work environment for teachers of color, especially dealing with such a polarized district. And so that's really how the organization came to be. As we were doing this equity work, we started to see that a lot of Black educators and educators of color were being blacklisted, along with really just, I want to say, for the lack of better terms, hazed. And unfortunately, some of them did end up losing their jobs. And so we were just like, even though we know that this is necessary, we don't feel as if Black educators or educators at all should be martyrs for educational reform. And so there needed to be an entity that was put in place to even just be able to spread awareness about an issue that was so heinous, that is really going on and permeating the South at this moment, this racial reckoning. And so that is really just kind of like the gist of why this organization exists, as well as what my personal mission was to make sure that there was a space for it.
Yeah, man, and that's so great. And it's so funny hearing people's stories about going into the education field. A lot of times you hear a lot of teachers have the same great story where like they get in and they stay because of the students,
Yeah.
right? It looks like you left because of the students and the teachers, right?
Yes, yes, yes. So
Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
No, sorry, finish.
I can definitely speak to that.
Yeah, please.
Okay, so I started teaching in 2018. So I was a non-traditional teacher. And my goal was initially to come in and do my 3-year bid where it was like I could take the gaze, but I didn't really have to get in a certification program until that 3rd year. At least that's what I thought. But I had a rude awakening when I was hired in March, and by August, they told me, right when I was starting, that I had to be in a teacher preparation program by December. I wasn't going to get my contract renewed. And so I was like, well, that changes the game for really the longevity of me being in the classroom, as I thought I was going to go there and then I was going to break out and go to law school. So my dream was always to be a civil rights attorney. So really initially I wanted to be a civil rights attorney. So I still wanted to be in the equity and justice space, just in a different way. I knew I wanted to be an educator, as I only had one Black educator between kindergarten through 12th grade. So that educator really changed the trajectory of my life, because I had went through so many emotional things just within my family. It was very hard for me to learn early. And so I almost failed 2nd and 3rd grade. I moved school districts from Fulton County into Gwinnett County. And as soon as we moved into Gwinnett County, we lost our house in a house fire. So it burned down to the ground before I could even start school. So I was supposed to be starting school January 3rd. Our house burned down January 2nd. Mind you, this was very significant because this was the first house we had ever had. Before, we were staying in extended stays like guest house inn, sun suites, and things that you would see in general. And so I had a very interesting childhood where there was times where I was also commuting from Jonesboro and whatnot. And so it made me very, very much at that point in my life, very insecure, as well as very low self-esteem, and really thinking that I could not amount to much, you know what I mean, just due to the surroundings that I had. And so it wasn't until I met that Black educator, and she told me that my way out of generational poverty would be through education. She knew my mother because my mother worked as a parapro in the same school that I went to middle school. And so they had a relationship. So she was able to mentor me from a very personal, in a very, very personal way. And so I was like, well, I'm going to at least, teach for about 3 years, so I can also give back to, students that might feel a little bit wavered. And so she really helped me change as I kind of did okay in school up until that point. And that was my 8th grade year. And by 9th grade through my 12th grade year, I was able to become an AP scholar, graduate with a 3.5 GPA, just because she told me to take agency over my education. And that really sat with me. And so I was like, I could be a teacher, for 3 years, go in there, teach, have a good time, and then go to law school. But when they told me like, hey, no, you actually have to, be in school, I decided, well, you know what, I'm going to just, instead of going into just a certification, I'm going to go get my master's at Georgia State. I graduated from Georgia State undergrad, political science pre-law with a minor in African-American studies. I was like, Georgia State is the best, I will say, non-HBCU, as they graduate the most African Americans in the country, in general, even over HBCUs. And that's just, because of the demographics here in Metro Atlanta. I was going to go back. And so it was a meet cute as I met my colleague to really run this grassroots movement. And so that is really how I ended up in education, but also understanding that I had just really a vision to do more, in the sense of I wanted to create an impact within the education space, because I knew how fundamental it was really just to my self-efficacy as a person, as a Black woman. And I needed to really be able to understand and give back to my community. I've always been very community focused. And so really that is really what led me there. And then what kind of had me exit was really understanding that when I was going through the grassroots movement, I would see the agency that we had, and we would operate in that, as I am a political scientist by trade. But I realized that there were systems put in place, especially in public education, to where my impact would only be a certain amount, if that makes sense. And so I was fortunate to build the nonprofit, and we scaled internally because we had a smoking gun. One of my best friend, which is the CFO, she is a senior security, well, she was a senior security program manager for Twitter. Now she's at Hinge Health. And so she's really good when it comes to operations. So she helped us build internally as we were continuing to go out and spread the awareness and spread the message. And so we were able to get funding from New School Venture Fund in November of last year to run the organization full time. And so I ended up exiting the classroom at year 5. I didn't quite make it to finish year 5, but I was year 4.5. I was department chair at the time, and I resigned. Yes, I resigned. It is a long story. I resigned.
No. Hold up. You're saying all these small, humble brags. Like, you got to give me your props for that. You didn't even plan on staying in this for like the super, super long term, but you were already department chair for what, social studies?
Yeah.
Yo, congrats. Like, you are good at what you do.
I appreciate it. And it was so crazy because for a long time, I was the only Black female on the social studies team. So I received a lot of microaggressions. I received a lot of abuse, really teaching there. And then also being a millennial, which is one of the reasons why we are very, very we find it to be important to focus on millennial and Gen Z educators, just because we have a different outlook of life, because we were born in a different generation. And people even understand this about millennials. We are statistically 40% poorer than the generation before us, because we had to go through the Great Recession. We went through COVID. And so we have a different outlook on the world. You know what I mean? The rose-colored glasses were taken off our eyes very, very early. And so I ended up seeing just really the inequities within education by just experiencing what I experienced as a Black female millennial educator. And so, yes, those same folks that were grilling me in the beginning ended up having to really just end up having to experience my leadership. And so it was a very interesting thing. As my education experience within those 4.5 years, I've done a lot of things that, most teachers don't even feel like they have the agency to do, but they can, if they so choose to make themselves open to really stretch assignments and learning new things. So even within the grassroots movement, I was able to, alongside the social studies director for the county, curate ethnic studies and then train all of the educators that were teaching ethnic studies. I was able to be a textbook editor, a teacher textbook editor for McGraw Hill. And what I was able to become department chair. I, even to this day, write curriculum for the Department of Education. And so I would not, if I didn't have the agency and I didn't realize that teachers are really who needs to be at the focal point, along with students making decisions on what is going on in educational reform today, I wouldn't have had those opportunities, because I wouldn't have even believed in myself. And so that is the goal, even with GAEJ, is to really help educators, even within their younger years, because I was left at 4.5, realize their potential, their power, their impact that they can have. And that is just really just through my life in general and through the lives of, our board members, we hope to be able to display that. So yes, I did have a very eventful teaching career. I really did. I loved my students. My students loved me. I can honestly say I've had the opportunity to be one of the favorite teachers at the school, as I really led with authenticity, and did not try to be anything that I was not.
Yeah, man. And I love that. And you are definitely doing it. Like, Man, I'm so excited for you and your journey. It sounds like you're just getting started too.
I am just getting started. I am. I'm still working with some internal things. I think even though I speak on really garnering that self-efficacy and self-esteem, it is very difficult in a space like, I will say, in the South, in education. As we know, everybody that you know has a doctorate, you know what I mean? Especially Black folks. Black folks love to education, love to have a doctor here, doctor there, you know, specialist here, specialist there. And a lot of my work comes from the heart. So like it comes from the heart space where I'm not as the most organized leader. Everything, what feels good, what manifests, you know, really believing in the mission. But now also having to understand that there's intricacies in business that I have to figure out. There is really just garnering that self-esteem just in general in myself to realize that I am an expert. Sometimes I'm like, yeah, I have a resume, but like, am I an expert? You know what I mean? I'm not, you know, I'm not 40, 50 years old yet in education. I ain't been a superintendent. I haven't been an assistant principal because I just didn't think that route was for me, as I wanted to have impact within the community. And I just realized how censored, you know, as you start to go up the ladder, you become. I was just like, that's not for me. I have to find my leadership in a, you know, a different type of direction, which is why, you know, I chose nonprofit. But I will say nonprofit is also an institution in itself. And I didn't really understand that until getting into nonprofit and living here for a while. But there is a lot of barriers that need to be broken down just in general, as I want to say about if I read a statistic, about 0.39% of 0.39% of funding goes to like Black startups or startups of color in general. And so there is a precarious nature when it comes to just the funding of organizations, as we reign true and really just being authentic and being community focused. Yet sometimes we don't even receive the funding necessary to do the work, but mission and vision leads, and we understand that there is bigger than us, that we have to make sure that this happens. And so, yeah, I'm just getting started. I'm just starting to find my voice. And so I'm thankful for platforms like yours to really be able to bring and spread awareness about really what is going on, just even in the philanthropy level, in education, just in general. Because it's a lot, and it's a lot that is pitted against teachers of color and people of color in general.
Yeah, it definitely is a lot. And I'm glad I'm here who could lend a small helping hand because you're doing some really amazing work. One of the other things I want to touch on is some of the challenges in education that Georgia Educators for Equity are trying to tackle. But before we get into that, let's hear a break from one of my sponsors, Teachers of Color Matter.
Friend, we need to talk. As a teacher of color with a social justice mindset, I know if I give big to my students, I also need to replenish big to myself. My Clap for Yourself 5-minute reflection journal is perfect. This journal was designed for teachers of color, so it takes my experiences in the classroom to heart. And friend, this journal has everything. It helps me address feelings of overwhelm, anxiety, and self-doubt. I can either fill out a template on the right side or process a larger issue on the left. The templates bring more intention and success into my day, and I can use the adult coloring moments when I'm calling a parent or during a staff meeting. And Dr. Michelle has written letters to me throughout the book. It's almost as if she's reading my mind. The inspirational quotes remind me that I'm part of a legacy. Representation matters, and I do make an impact. What does your morning routine look like?
Welcome back. So Aireane, I want to talk to you about a lot of the challenges in education that Georgia Educators for Equity is trying to tackle. So first off, there's a lot of different avenues you can go to tackle the challenges. You can focus on teacher development and wellness. You can focus on student wellness, curriculum, neighborhood programs. How are you and your program trying to tackle the challenges in education?
So I'm going to tell you this, and this is the critique that we have gotten just by, you know, several funders. We are a wraparound organization, as 80% of us have been teachers. 40% of our board are still active teachers in the classroom. We understand that there's not a one size fit all. So we do engage in different tools and strategies for really achieving the liberation that we want to seek. And so how we do this, some of our main vehicles, definitely professional development. So teacher development is a big thing. We are very invested in the recruitment and retention of Black educators. And we, going into 2024, we'll start to build our Black ed teacher pipeline, where we are getting students from undergrad and already having a affinity space for them all the way up until in service. So this is going to be our melanated educated programming. So we are so excited to be able to do that coming soon, as we know that recruitment and retention of Black educators is going to be the long game. And it's going to take time. It's going to take love. It's going to take strategy. We also do focus on teacher development of all teachers, you know what I mean? As our Black students and students of color in general are in classrooms with mostly white educators. And so what does that look like for us? So we have built an ed tech product that will be coming to market within the next week, where we have an asynchronous course where we're teaching everything from how to build a lesson plan, how to leverage AI in your classroom to shorten your teacher planning time. Also, what institution to pick even for your teacher preparation programming. We think that that is important. Things that typically when you would go in, as I was a non-traditional teacher, I learned probably where the copy room was, and then I was in front of 40 students. I remember writing on the board with with an expo marker as they took notes, and having an assistant principal walking in my room like, I hope you have a PowerPoint tomorrow. And I'm like, see, these are the things that I need to be trained on, because one thing about me, I'm gonna be honest, I am going to be very, very, very much invested in my craft. And so it took a lot of hard work, but what we're trying to do is reduce having educators, new educators or early classroom educators having to go seek their own professional development, because school districts just don't have the bandwidth to do so. So we have our asynchronous course. We're going to have our weekly Q&A sessions for new educators to be able to come, that's in the program, to come in and ask all the questions they want to outside of their planning time. So whenever they have an opportunity, they can come in. If they do, if they don't, they don't have to. And then we'll have also, to follow up with that, we'll have a monthly masterclass from industry experts on all topics: culture responsive pedagogy, how to deal with behavior issues in the classroom, and then just the fundamental tactical stuff: how to write lesson plans, how to do rubrics, how to have syllabus, and all these type of things that we think that educators need to know in order for them to have that self-efficacy and to feel confident as on day one of the classroom. So that is our goal, because we know that if we don't train these educators are not going to get trained. And so we have a very teacher-focused training. We look forward to really being able to do tremendous work in that arena. We also, how we tackle really just community development is we have a program.
1 second.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I love that you're doing that stuff on teacher development, because just thinking back to my teaching experience, there are so many things that you don't learn in those education courses, right? It's things like how to deal with rude parents, or like how to deal with culturally insensitive students that you just don't learn. That I think this is great. Is your program supposed to be, I guess, complementary to their education program already, or in place of?
So we want it to be in complementary to school districts in general, like how their training is typically like, oh, you have the week of where you come in and you talk to different teachers and they kind of help you out that first week. We want to be able to have a long-term mentorship of these educators. We don't want them to feel like they're isolated and they don't have anybody to go to, because I know personally, I've experienced some educators that really didn't like in the beginning, my candor. They didn't appreciate that I really actually cared to make students' lives better. Some teachers, I hate to be the one, operate in, and it's because of the growing administrative task, I get it, not having to deal with best practices, not having to be called out on things that can be detrimental to students. I had teachers that because they had a lot of classes, they didn't want to look at the standards anymore. So the standards had shifted. This is a state test. These are not what we're testing on anymore. So I'm bringing awareness to this because I care about my craft, and because I was really early on in my educational career, before I could even prove through my test scores that I was a very competent educator. I had to deal with a lot of abuse. I would just say microaggressions about me feeling like I'm very outspoken. And so I want to be able to nourish these educators in a space where it's loving, in a space where, yeah, you might receive some sort of issues when it comes to work dynamics, but come here and ask us how we can strategize together about making it a better work environment and a safer work environment for you, with also in tandem working with the district on how to make sure that they have inclusive procedures for work in the work environment, because teachers don't quit, and people don't quit about if a organization has a DEI policy, because DEI policy typically does not even trickle down into the workplace. You have to put strategic strategies in place where you're having the assistant principal that's over you modeling inclusive behaviors when it comes to the teachers around them. You have to make sure that the principal is doing that. You have to make sure that you're doing some sort of training. I don't want to say implicit bias, so I love implicit bias training. Implicit bias training of really just the department itself, to make sure that you're not going to have beautiful, amazing teachers of color, or just young teachers or new teachers not feeling like their voice was heard. I was coming out of a management role when I came into education. I was a restaurant manager. So I was used to managing people that were older than me. I was used to being a young Black woman. And again, being a young Black woman, abuse comes with the territory. So I had a thick skin to it, you know what I mean, at points, but continuously being poked at, was very, very dramatic for me. And so I just realized, like, I don't think that unless you are intentionally training educators and other, stakeholders to be mentors, maybe they don't need to be mentors because they have their own situation going. And we have to realize that they weren't trained adequately, which is why we created a safe haven with best practice knowledge to be able to train these educators. We have a professor from Georgia State. She's in the teacher preparation program, which is a lead consultant within this work. So we want to ground it in what teachers would experience in a higher educational setting, just because we know that it's important. And so what's interesting is I want to have really the opportunity enrolls into these public school districts across the state of Georgia. I'm getting so much more buzz about it in charter schools, and even universities that are starting to now digitize their teacher preparation programs in order to have more teachers come in and it be a little lower stakes. And so they're like, maybe we need something like this. And so we're going to get it out to market. As I was just teaching in December of last year. Now I'm learning how to build webinars. Now I'm about to start selling stuff. It's like, it's so dramatic where the life has taken me, but I knew that it was going to be very important, for teachers to really get the love and support that they need, especially within that vulnerable time of that. Really, that first year is very vulnerable, especially if you're coming in non-traditional and you don't have any undergrad experience in education. It can make and break people. I've seen half of the teachers that I came in with that were non-traditional, they left within the same semester that they came. It was a lot. And so I was just very happy that I was able to build a community of amazing educators around me to help me. I was in my classroom. I remember having to get to work at 6:45. I would be in my classroom, especially my first year, till 9 p.m., learning how to grade, learning how to, write lessons, learning how to make tests. I knew that I wanted to be an effective teacher, and I knew that my students depended on me to be an effective teacher starting at day one. And it took some time. I wasn't the best teacher day one. I know that for sure. It took me some time. It took me studying my craft, watching other teachers and their instructional strategies to realize that you can't shortcut, what it is. And so I want to inspire younger new educators to really realize that you do have agency at day one. If you see something that's inequitable, don't let somebody talk you out of, that this is not the best practice or instructional strategy for you, your students, and really just the students within that particular, I guess, like team. So this is built from the heart, and this is some stuff that I experienced. So yeah, it is an interesting place to be.
It really, really is. And look at you now, on the greatest teacher of all time. All that hard work paid off.
For real.
Yeah. And so maybe going a little further into what you guys are actually doing, right? So the Georgia Educators for Equity and Justice has a couple different programs that I want to talk about. The first one, I did a little research on it. The Education Cafe, right? So it was modeled by Intercultural Development and Research Association to create school and family community collaboration. What exactly is that? I know you guys have different monthly seminars that impact anti-critical race theory legislation. What exactly are you guys doing with that?
All right. So IDRA is a beautiful organization that's coming out of Texas. And so they wanted to get roots down here in Georgia. And we just happened to be almost a meet cute where we were community organizers. They came to us to talk to us about really the legislation, the heinous legislation that was going on in Texas. And now they were starting to see Texas then spread to Georgia. And so they wanted to kind of circumvent these issues so it wouldn't be as bad as Texas. And so pretty much through our educational cafes, this was our second grant, but this is when our first big grant that we received. And so we're just really thankful to IDRA for this work, but they gave us funding to then go out into the community and create these ed cafes for teachers to understand what types of protections that they had with the heinous legislation that was coming out through classroom censorship, anti-critical race theory, and the list goes on. And so what we would do is host events either online, where we would invite educators, educational stakeholders to come out, and we would pretty much share with them what was going on within the legislation space at that moment. We also had the opportunity to have the doors open to us for at Georgia State University, where we would then go into those teacher preparation programs and we would educate them on the legislation that's coming out and really realistic strategy on how to tackle this issue if it comes up, in the sense of their teaching curriculum that maybe parents do not like. And so at that, and in that space, HB 1084 was one of the hottest issues where they wanted to take out critical race theory just in general. And they no longer wanted, they wanted to censor anything that was explain the real truth of America. And of course, we know, especially in the South, that this country was built off the backs of slaves and indigenous populations. And so because some of the parents felt as if that would upset, the white population of students, they did not want to have that legislation, or they wanted to not have that type of curriculum within the classroom. This is not the first time we see classroom censorship, but this is one of the big times, and especially here in Georgia, as we know that this typically a red state, but it turned blue during the 2020 senatorial race. They did everything that they could to reverse what had happened in the significant time of 2020. And so we wanted to be there, as education has always been the focal point of civil rights movements. We wanted to be able to teach educators that you did not have to censor. We've seen a lot of educators censor, even going into COVID in general, as they felt as if they could not speak out, is because really we're in a right to work state. We don't have collective bargaining. Our teacher union is just as powerful as they can be. We wanted to really be able to get together with partners and discuss what we could do to protect educators as they were brave in the classroom and continue to teach what was necessary for the growth of the students in an equitable way.
Yeah, and I love that you're doing stuff like that too, because it's just so needed,
Yes.
Yeah. One of the other programs I want to talk about is Raise Your Voices. What is that exactly?
So this is my favorite program. I'm not going to lie to you. It really just, like I told you, I had a dream a long time ago to be a civil rights attorney, to really be able to go into communities and really just community build with them, to really offer them the support to garner the agency necessary to change the community for the better for Black people in general. And so what we do in Raise Your Black Voices town halls is we visit Black communities outside of Metro Atlanta. And we host these town halls where we're asking them, you know, what are the impediments to educational equity? What are the impediments just in general that you're starting to see within your Black community? And how can we be a partner and support as well as spread awareness about these issues? And so we have gone to 3 different, funding is funny. So we've gone to 3 different communities. So first we started out in Clark County where UGA is, to talk to those Black constituents about the impediments to educational equity. We started to hear situations of non-affordable housing, Black community being pushed out of the main Metro Athens area, and how UGA needs to pay reparations back to really the destruction of Black community. And so we take these stories, they're really stories because we want to be able to tell the story of the Black Mecca. And Black Mecca in general is, even though people say Atlanta, but this is Georgia in general, as we are one of the states that has one of the highest populations of Black people just in general. And so we go to different communities. So we started in Clark County, then we went to LaGrange or Troup County, and we talked to them as well about the impediments to educational equity. We got all this, took our notes, and what we hope to do is create a coalition. And we're in the works of creating a coalition across the state of Georgia, connecting all of the Black communities to then really just influence our legislative agenda as we will continue to fight for the rights of Black people. And so not just in the education space, but just in general. And I think everything is really tied into one another: education, housing, and we just haven't seen that. I feel like the way we work in silos, building, is not as powerful as if we come together and really set a massive agenda and really become on one accord using the same language. And so we hope to be able to also, through our grassroots movement, as successful as it was, really help them just strategize about how they can too change their community for the way that they need to see their community change. So we want to be able to organize at the local level, so that they too can realize that no longer do they have to have people in power that do not look like them, you know what I mean? And that their community too can change. And so that is the goal with Raise Your Black Voices Town Halls, to continue to keep. It's a listening series. Some of our partners in this, and we're very proud of this, is NAACP Legal Defense Fund. And we know NAACP Legal Defense Fund was the organization that bought Brown v. Board of Education, our help with the passage of Brown v. Board of Education. So we know that this is a tremendous, encounter that we're doing. And we're just lucky to be really, I don't even know, the vessel that this work is happening in, as this is not just a situation that's in Georgia, but this is a situation that's in the South. This is a situation that is permeating the United States of America. And so just to be able to really coalition build with them, and them seeing what is going on within the context of the South, has been really reassuring. So we also, our last county that we visited was Dougherty County, and we were on the campus of Albany State University and was able to run a Raise Your Black Voices town hall. And so we just hope to continue to be able to go out into these Black communities, hear what is going on, bring their voices to the table, as typically you're only going to get. Metro Atlanta is loud, you know what I mean? You got a lot of Black people that are doing great work, but we're not engaging the full Black electorate across the state of Georgia. And that is what our goal is through Raise Your Black Voices Town Hall and the coalition.
Okay, man, I love that. I especially love that you guys are more than just in the classroom organizers, right? Like you're doing more in the community, which helps everybody as a result.
We think so too, because we're talking about this just as a board in general. Our students are with us for 8 hours. And so they have to be somewhere else for the other 16. We can only do so much in the classroom, breaking generational curses off just the Black community in general. We know that is going to take the community, because before integration, the Black community was very tight. You would have this teacher that lived next door that would go tell your mom, like, hey, they weren't listening in class. And the Black teacher was a prominent figure in the community. We want to get back to the prestige of the teacher, the Black educator. And so we wanted to get back to really building a community of Black constituents that understand that education is really the I want to say it is if I remember statistics, it's like the second great equalizer of really breaking generational poverty. And so it is very integral that every actor is understanding their role in breaking generational poverty and then really creating educational reform. It cannot just be done by teachers. It has to be done by parents. It has to be done by community members. Everybody has to come together and realize that it is important to be very active in your local elections, to be very active at the school board, to be very active in the schools and holding principals, teachers, admin responsible for making sure that your student is getting the best education that they deserve. And so we do not just stop at what's going on in the classroom. We continue to see the end goal and the solution, because we know that it's going to be very nuanced in general. And so we're trying to engage all the actors that we think would be integral in creating this amazing moment.
Man, I love it. You are doing some phenomenal work. And I can tell from everything you've been talking about, you are so passionate about the work. But I'm curious, in a few words, are you more than your job? Like, who is Aireane the person?
So
like, do you have time for yourself, even though you're balancing all these different projects?
To be honest, I'm gonna be real with you. You know,
Yeah.
I am in a space of no balance. Okay. I haven't been balanced fully since probably like 2018. I am very big in I always wanted to do something that I love to do and that I was passionate about. And so when I'm passionate about something, I'm going to go 100 miles per hour to really be able to get done what needs to be done. You know, I never wanted to be one of those people that only cared about myself or very individualistic in nature. I've always been very communal. And I know that that's different in the sake of just like a Western mindset. And so it wasn't always about me, but I can honestly say to preserve the mission and vision, I have to preserve myself. And this is a lesson that I'm learning in this stage of my life. This journey of creating the nonprofit has been, and this year of being a full-time entrepreneur has been the hardest year of my life. Honestly, it has been the most difficult year of my life, because I can be honest, I work 7 days a week. I really do try to take breaks when I need it. I do burn out sometimes, you know, and it's very difficult, but this was the path that I've chosen. And in this season, you know, I just asked my ancestors to really just guide me through this journey. There's been some really high highs and there's been some very low lows. And so I am seeking balance in this moment. And really in this moment, and I can say this and I can be honest, because this is a passion project or a passion organization, this organization was built from the heart. Sometimes it's attached to my self-esteem. And so me really being able to spread the knowledge and seeing if this organization is something that is needed can be difficult for me at points. And so I'm learning how to be more vocal. You know, I know that people are like, you got to build your own brand. You got to show up. It's like, you are GAEJ, but who is Aireane? What does that look like for you? And so that has been a critique that I have been receiving really like within the last day, but just a while ago, just in general about Aireane, you can show up as yourself, but I will say this will be 2024 is going to be a different year for us, as we are going to go as public as possible and garner that support of young Black educators as it's needed in order to sustain the organization. I can't fully, in my board, it's only like 5 of us, and we have an executive assistant, 6 of us, that are lifting this organization and really carrying it on our backs in hopes that it will pick up the traction that it deserves, as this is a space for not just us in general, but for all Black educators across the state of Georgia. So we hope that through our programming, we continue to get more and more Black educators to really buy into the mission and vision, to understand their agency and how important they are within this educational reform, and just, you know, really embrace it as we have. So yes, the balance is not there, and I'm learning, and I'm trying and striving every day to seek it.
Yeah, and I'm definitely hoping it's coming soon. We'll get into the zodiac sign talk off camera. But to the audience at home, full transparency, it is a Saturday morning, almost afternoon. Aireane had to get off another call to get on this with me. So you are really working nonstop.
I'm doing my best. I have a call after this to
See? No, but really, all the hard work you're doing, the Georgia Educators for Equity and Justice, along with the programs you guys are doing, the way you guys tackle education or the challenge in education, are all part of the reasons why I think you might be one of the greatest educators of all time.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much. That's so nice.
Yeah, really. And Aireane, thanks to my sponsors like Costco, Teachers of Color Matter, Victorious RED Restoration, and a few anonymous donors, I'd actually like to give you this $150 gift card to use with you or your organization, or really whatever you choose.
That is the nicest thing ever. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
I got you. Yeah, so part of my job is to uplift and help educators. That's exactly what I'm doing with you now.
Thank you so much. That is so nice.
Yeah, of course. Also, thank you to everyone else for watching The Greatest Teacher of All Time, where I, Quincy Dawson, interview teachers of color to highlight their personalities, strategies, and philosophies on education. Please make sure to subscribe to the channel and like the video. And if you really liked it, leave a comment for me and Miss Montgomery to see. Also, if you are the greatest teacher of all time, or if you know the greatest teacher of all time, let me know. Go to greatesteacherofalltime.com and click on Submit a Teacher. Hope to see you soon.